Toronto home prices rise, but sales slow in March. That was the headline from the Financial Post this week describing TRREB's March Market Watch report. And here's the headline that TRREB circulated: selling prices are up in March and set to accelerate this spring. In this video, I'm going to dive into the substance of both of these headlines. We're going to look at sales and new listings activity as well as price movement. We're going to take a look at the median instead of the average, and then just try to parse out where this projection of price acceleration this spring is coming from. Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. It's me, Rob Marsiglio with Keller Williams Referred Urban Realty out here in Durham region. If you enjoy videos diving into the Toronto real estate stats and numbers, I do something like this every single week. So please like this video and subscribe to the channel because I don't want you to miss anything going forward. Let's get right into what was said in the Market Watch report as well as some of the numbers. Let's touch on our prices first. So despite a better supplied market compared to last year, there was enough competition between buyers to see a moderate increase in the average March home price compared to last year's level. The MLS Home Price Index composite benchmark was up by 0.3% year over year. The average selling price was up by 1.3% to $1,121,615. On a seasonally adjusted month-over-month basis, the MLS HPI composite was up by 0.2% and the average selling price was up by 0.7% compared to February. So that gives us an idea of where things ended up in March compared to February from all of these metrics. I personally like using the median sale price and I try to report on that weekly over on Twitter. Follow me there if you haven't already. So let's jump into those charts for the Toronto freehold condo markets as well as Durham, York, Peel, and Halton. So starting with our sale counts and median sale prices for the Toronto freehold market, you can see that we definitely had a jump from January through February all the way up until March, and that March number is definitely up the median sale price. This dotted line is our 4-week weighted moving average for the median sale price. But you can see that price acceleration happened mostly in February through to March, and through March, things stayed pretty flat. The condo side is a similar story. A lot of that price acceleration came through February and flattened out a little bit in March. In Durham region, the pattern looks a little bit more like steps upwards, climbing the stairs. We saw a jump at the beginning of January, things flattened out, a little jump at the beginning of February. Things may have peaked and then even came down just a little bit in that 4-week rolling average. So those peak prices that we saw in March in Durham were in early March. We focused on York region in a previous video comparing 2023 peak to today's prices. We saw some definitely rapid acceleration in prices from January all the way through to the beginning of March in York region. But just like we've seen in our other markets so far, things seem to have leveled out through March and we didn't see much price movement. When we get into Peel region, it's the first market where I think we've seen some steady price increases through March, but you're not talking anything drastic. You're talking maybe from $975,000 up to about $990,000 for that median sale price on this 4-week moving average. And lastly, in Halton region, we're not for this big spike, this kind of weekly anomaly that we saw here, dragging that 4-week moving average up. I feel like this pattern would have been pretty similar to what we've seen through the rest of the GTA, where it's that big ascent that we saw through February, followed by kind of a plateau in the March market. So that's a wrap on where prices were in March. And as you can see across the GTA, most of the price gains were from January through February into March, and things seem to have leveled off a little bit. Now, one of those headlines from TRREB projected that we would see big price jumps in the spring. We're going to wrap up the video looking at some of the numbers and kind of outside factors that will affect prices in the spring market and kind of historically how prices do perform in the spring. But for now, let's move on to the sales. Back into the TRREB Market Watch report. So there were 6,560 sales reported through TRREB's MLS system in March of 2024, down 4.5% compared to March 2023. New listings were up by 15% over the same period. On a seasonally adjusted basis, sales were down by 1.1% and new listings were down by 3% compared to February. The first quarter ended with sales up by 11.2% year over year. New listings were up by a greater annual rate of 18.3%. Now I want to compare 2024 to what we saw in 2023 as well as our moving average. And again, I shared all these on Twitter earlier in the week, but this orange line is how sales are performing in 2024. And this blue line is how sales performed in 2023. So you can see that 2024 got off to a kind of relatively hotter start than we saw in 2023. But we did see more rapid acceleration in sales totals from February to March of last year, whereas this year, yes, things increased, but it was a bit of a deceleration in terms of the kind of rate of increase. And you can see that compared to what we'd normally expect to see, this is the time of year where we'd expect to see the biggest jump in sales reported would be from February to March. So we really did buck that trend in 2024. Now, this is tracked on a daily basis, sales right across the Greater Toronto Area. As a caveat, if you're somebody looking to get into the market, I don't suggest looking at sales on a daily basis. The reason I track it this way is so we can see when in the month something shifted, when a new trend started to emerge. We do know that sales were up in March, but did sales steadily grow through March, or what really happened? And as you can see, probably attributed a bit to March break, a bit to the short week that we had because of the Easter long weekend, which TRREB does touch on in their Market Watch report. Sales, the rate of sales, at least the 7-day rate of sales, stayed pretty flat through March. So there was a definite jump from February into the end of February and through March. But again, things stayed pretty flat. Let's imagine Good Friday wasn't there and there wasn't a statutory holiday and things were being reported. Who knows where we would have ended up from a sales perspective. But again, we did see that fall off. This is the Good Friday point right here. So things were pretty steady through the month of March in terms of sales on a daily basis. TRREB also touched on the new listings numbers. So again, same thing. We have 2024 new listings. Going into February, at least, we are right around what we'd expect to see based on our average going back to 2008. But again, instead of that acceleration in listings that you expect to see from February to March, we saw a deceleration in that rate of increase. Even last year, we did see kind of more listings come to market. It accelerated a little bit more from February to March in 2023. Same exercise looking at things on a daily basis. We did see a bit of a spike. This big spike in anomaly is due to a system error at TRREB where people are having a hard time uploading listings for a day. But again, for the 7-day average, kind of all comes out in the wash. You can see that Easter long weekend really affected that last week of March and really dampened new listings that came to market. And now I can tell you early this week, we're already seeing more listings come to market. I think the first Tuesday after the Easter long weekend is the day that we saw the most listings. I think it was over 900 listings across the GTA. Let's stay tuned for what's going to happen with inventory in April. I'm expecting a little bit more activity in the market from a new listings perspective. Again, the question is going to be, will the buyers be able to afford to keep that demand up to match the supply that is coming to market? Now, to wrap things up, let's get into those projections for spring prices. They're set to accelerate or poised to jump, whatever that headline said earlier on. But let's see exactly what TRREB said about this. This first snippet is from TRREB President Jennifer Pierce. We've seen a gradual improvement in market conditions over the past quarter. More buyers have adjusted to the higher interest rate environment. At the same time, homeowners may be anticipating an improvement in market conditions in the spring, which helps explain the marked increase in new listings so far this year. Assuming we benefit from lower borrowing costs in the near future, sales will increase further, new listings will be absorbed, and tighter market conditions will push selling prices higher. Now, from TRREB's chief market analyst Jason Mercer, the average selling price edged up in comparison to last year as we moved through the first quarter of 2024. Price growth is expected to accelerate during the spring, and even more so in the second half of the year, as sales growth catches up with listings growth and sellers' market conditions start to emerge in many neighborhoods. Lower borrowing costs in the months ahead will help fuel increased demand for ownership housing. In summary, it looks like TRREB sees more new listings coming to market as more sellers become active in the spring market, but they also see sales increasing to absorb those new listings, and all of that as a result of kind of a better interest rate environment on the horizon. Let's jump into those interest rate projections to start. If we look at the Canadian interest rate expectations, this kind of tells us what the market thinks the overnight rate is going to do. You can see there's a 92% chance of 3 cuts or 75 basis points in cuts in total by the end of 2024. In terms of what is going to happen with fixed rates, that really depends on what the Canada 5-year government bond is going to do. You can see it's been pretty flat for the last few months, but this is a number you'll want to monitor when trying to project what is going to happen with those 5-year fixed rate products. Even if the Bank of Canada does cut rates by 75, even 125 basis points by the end of the year, it's not going to do much to improve affordability or people's ability to qualify for a mortgage. And that's because, as you can see here, the spread between the 5-year variable rate and the 5-year fixed rate is closer to 2% than it is to 1%, or right around that range that they're talking about the Bank of Canada may cut rates by the end of the year. So I personally don't see any big relief, even as a result of rate cuts from the Bank of Canada, in terms of enough to stoke a massive market or huge price gains outside of what we would normally see in any given year. And speaking of any given year, here's how things have trended, how prices change on a month-to-month basis, according to TRREB's Market Watch data. This year's followed trend pretty nicely. We usually see the biggest jump in prices in February. That is when the biggest jumps are recorded right across the Toronto Regional Real Estate Board. In March, we were right about in line with here. I think prices were up. It was 1.3% from last year. It was right around the same month over month, about 1.2% in terms of those average prices. It wouldn't surprise me, based on historical trends, to see a bit of a bigger jump in April. I'd say that this 2 to 3% jump that we could see would be on the high side of my projections, but you never know what this kind of spring exuberance will do to consumers. Maybe some more people will be out there. And it's not like their ability to buy has improved based on rates, but maybe some exuberance in the market, maybe some more detached homes or bigger homes selling will drag that average price point up. And then you can expect, based on history again, another kind of big jump in September when the fall market rolls around. We'll see what rates are at that time. But this is kind of how I expect the rest of the year to trend just based on history. But let me know what you think. Are we poised for bigger than usual price jumps this spring? Leave a comment below with your thoughts. And one more time, I do something like this every single week, trying to dive into the numbers and the trends. So if you enjoyed this video, please like it, subscribe to the channel. I don't want you to miss anything like this going forward. Thanks so much for sticking with me right through to the end of another video. Till we speak again next time, please stay safe and cheers.